Hey guys, it's me, Hunter again. I just wanted to give out a shout out to my friend Jack Dorsey for keeping the lid on that embarrassing article the other day. And shout out to my good buddy Zuck. Man, you got some good weed, dude. Anyway, thanks for keeping a lid on that embarrassing article. You know what I'm saying? And you guys, I mean, I didn't even see it on the news last night, so that's great. Oh, well, except for Fox News, but yeah, whatever. So yeah, there's gonna be some other things that are coming out. Again, keep it on the DL and don't put it on Twitter, okay? Thanks again, buddies, and vote for my dad. Is this thing on? I think it is. Okay. Hey, listen, guys, it's me. It's Hunter. Listen, this is going to be a problem for my dad. And I'm already on his shit list, and I can't afford to get any worse because, honestly, I'm not making a whole lot of money right now, and I really need my dad not to be mad at me because he's kind of my meal ticket. You know what I'm saying? So listen. Just don't do it for me. Do it for my dad, okay? Do it for my dad, because he's been wanting to be president, I don't know, for forever. As long as I can, I can't remember last week, but for a long, long time, okay? Just do me a favor. Keep this whole thing on the down low. Don't say anything to him. Don't ask any questions. And it'll all blow over, okay? It always does. It always does, okay? So just ignore everything that you read and vote for Joe Biden, okay? Vote for my dad. Thank you, and God bless America or something. Bye.
Okay, guys, we got the Hunter Biden deepfakes trending. This from Magical Trevor. These two of the more amusing ones. Wow, been a while. Except for a lot of you who've been watching my streams over the past few months, this stuff isn't really new to you. I mean, the details that have leaked, and we're going to go into those in a minute. The details and the evidence that have piled up are new, but you guys that have been watching my streams for a while now, you already knew a lot of this stuff, or at least suspected it, or had good, reason to believe that this was the case, but it looks like Hunter Biden, the corruption of the Biden family, has basically come out. The dam is broken, and it's hard to hide. Before, I guess only the diehards, would have known the details, and I guess that this has been going back for years. There have been stories about this, and just nothing much came of it. And then you had the Donald Trump impeachment, Ukraine gate, when he was on the phone with the president of Ukraine there, and they tried to impeach him because he brought up the obvious. Hey, I saw this crazy video of Joe Biden bragging about getting the prosecutor in your country fired. You may want to look into that. And then that, backfired and exposed a lot of the American people to the corruption going on with the Biden family. So here we got a lot of this was put out. Basically, this fire was started by the New York Post from their cover. I think was it on Monday, their first big bombshell where they dropped the first emails that they reportedly got from a hard drive that was imaged off of a laptop, one of the laptops that Hunter Biden left at a Delaware computer repair shop, if you could believe this. And apparently for the want of paying an $85 repair bill on the laptop, lost possession of it legally to the owner of the shop, who then proceeded to look through the laptop and find a treasure trove, as it's being called, of evidence, of photos and videos of Hunter in all kinds of compromising positions, texts and emails that contradict what Hunter and his father and others have been saying about Biden knowing nothing about his son's corrupt business dealings. You have to remember, the fact that Hunter Biden was involved with the corrupt Burisma Corporation, that's beyond a shadow of a doubt. But Hunter Biden himself doesn't dispute that. Joe Biden himself has called it a mistake that he was involved with. So they can't deny that part of it. But we had the New York Post in this first of the. And guys, the way this is set up, Rudy Giuliani, he's the mayor of New York City. You're going to see how he got involved with this story. He has a copy of the hard drive from the laptop. It was given the an image of Hunter Biden's hard drive. And he's deliberately releasing a little bit at a time, to make sure that this stretches out, over the course of the news cycle for the next 3 weeks. And also to set a trap for the Bidens. He's not being very cagey about it. He's saying openly, just to see them deny portions of the story so that he could just drop evidence that shows they're lying. That's the trick. If you put it all out at once, they could issue a denial, and what do you got to come back with? Now, what Rudy is doing, he's just leaking it a little bit at a time, a little more at a time, so to try to get the Bidens to trip themselves up, and it appears that the Bidens are aware of this, and notice they've not issued any denials. This is the funniest thing. We're almost most of a week through this latest iteration of this scandal, and they've issued no specific denials of this material. So here we go. This was the article that got it all started. It was titled, Smoking Gun Email Reveals How Hunter Biden Introduced Ukrainian Businessman to Vice President Dad. So this came out on October 14th. October 14th was last Wednesday, actually. So here you got, let's see, Hunter Biden introduced his father, then Vice President Joe Biden, to a top executive at a Ukrainian energy firm less than a year before the elder Biden pressured government officials in Ukraine into firing a prosecutor who was investigating the company, according to emails obtained by the Post. So this is the important thing you have to understand here. The Post is alleging that this email that was to Hunter Biden, well, of course now it's going to lock up. Let's see if we can refresh that. But this email to Hunter Biden from one Vadim Pozarsky of the Ukraine, and the title of the email was "Meeting for Coffee?" ? Maybe I'll just expand the size for you. And he says, meeting for coffee. So this is dated April 17th, 2015. Now these dates become important. He writes it to Hunter Biden. That's his Rosemont Seneca email address, purportedly. And that's the problem. What some of the social media companies were trying to hang their hats on when they tried to squash this story later. Dear Hunter, thank you for inviting me to D.C. and giving an opportunity to meet your father and spend some time together. It's really an honor and pleasure. As we spoke yesterday evening, would be great to meet today for a quick coffee. What do you think? I could come to your office somewhere around noon or so before or on my way to airport. Best, V. So that'd be Vadim. So, if this email is authentic, we have no reason to believe it isn't. You have Vadim Pozarsky indicating that he's in Washington, D.C., and he's on his way to the airport sometime the next day, or that day at noon, to fly back to Ukraine, one presumes. And he's thanking Hunter Biden for the opportunity to meet his father and spend some time together. Well, one problem with that, with this email, if it is in fact accurate, is that Joe Biden claims he's never spoken to his son about his overseas business dealings. Well, here we have one of the, I think this is the number 2 or 3 guy at Burisma, thanking Hunter for introducing him to his father so he could spend time with him. So let's dig further. Joe and Hunter Biden golfed with Ukraine gas executive in 2014. Here's Joe Biden, second from the right, and his son Hunter at the right, golfing in the Hamptons with Devin Archer. And here, let's see, a photo has surfaced. This actually is an old article. It came out last October, actually over a year ago. A photo has surfaced that shows former Vice President Joe Biden posing with his son Hunter and Devin Archer, who served with Hunter on the board of Ukrainian natural gas company Burisma Holdings during a 2014 golf outing in the Hamptons. And when this story broke, Joe Biden said, quote, "I have never spoken to my son about his overseas business dealings," Biden said, before pivoting to President Trump. Now, this was during the height of the Ukraine stuff with Trump, when the Democrats did their sham impeachment. So that's what was going on there. So in the Post article, you have Vadim Pozarsky. This email basically confirms what we already knew. That Hunter was setting up Burisma executives and doing work on behalf of this foreign corporation unregistered. Now, in addition to that, the Post also wrote about details of other material on the laptop, which may prove relevant to because you're going to understand the FBI is involved now. So we have to ask, why is the FBI investigating Hunter Biden's laptop? And apparently there's other material on it, so that could explain it. But this other material, in fact, the Post alleges contains... Remember, the Post was given a copy of the hard drive, apparently, as well, by Rudy Giuliani. A raunchy 12-minute video that appears to show Hunter, who's admitted struggling with addiction problems, smoking crack while engaged in a sex act with an unidentified woman, as well as numerous other sexually explicit images. The customer who brought in the water-damaged MacBook Pro for repair never paid the service. The charge was $85, according to the bill that I've seen, or retrieved it, or a hard drive on which its contents were stored, according to the shop owner, who said he tried repeatedly to contact the client. The shop owner couldn't positively identify the customer as Hunter Biden, but said the laptop bore a sticker from the Beau Biden Foundation, named after Hunter's late brother and former Delaware Attorney General. Photos of a Delaware federal subpoena given to the Post show that both the computer and hard drive were seized by the FBI in December, after the shop's owner says he alerted the feds to their existence. So remember that the people that are trying to sell you on that this is a Russian disinformation campaign, they can't account for the fact that this laptop has not been in the shop owner's control since December. The FBI's had it. So unless the FBI is part of the Russian disinformation campaign, I don't know what to tell you. And here you can see this subpoena, United States District Court for the District of Delaware, subpoena to testify before a grand jury. This is a grand jury subpoena dated December 9th, 2019, and it's signed by one Joshua Williams, Special Agent Joshua Williams. I believe that's what it is, Williams or Wilson. And this guy, we're going to find out a little bit more about him in a minute. The guy that signed this grand jury subpoena. So, when this story first broke, in the span of less than a day, you had Facebook come out first and announced that they were going to reduce distribution of the New York Post story on Biden until it gets fact-checked. No story in the history of recent history of social media has been treated the way that this story has. Maybe the only comparable story would be trying to talk about the identity of the whistleblower in the Ukraine investigation. Remember the famous CIA whistleblower whose name I cannot say, or the video gets taken down. You know the name I'm speaking of. Some of you longtime viewers. We're reducing distribution of the New York Post story on Biden until it gets fact checked. So apparently Facebook is now the arbiter of what you can see. Apparently they are the editors of the New York Post newspaper. So let's this is the hot air take on Facebook's actions. As Ed wrote earlier, the New York Post has a big story out today headlined Biden's secret emails about files found on an old laptop computer someone allegedly dropped off at a repair shop and never returned to collect. One of the items discovered on the computer was an email in which an advisor to the board of Burisma had allegedly sent Hunter Biden thanking him for a chance to meet with his father, Joe Biden. As Ed has been pointing out all morning there, okay, so this is, what do we have here? Oh, so he's going into when Twitter started suppressing. Earlier today, a spokesman for Facebook to state on Twitter that the social media site would be reducing the distribution of the Post story even before it has been fact-checked. So remember, they hadn't fact-checked it. They had no reason, no evidence that anything that the Post had published was false, and you had Facebook and Twitter say that they were going to reduce distribution. Here's Andy Stone for speaking on Twitter's behalf. While I will intentionally not link to the New York Post, I want to be clear that this story is eligible to be fact-checked by Facebook's third-party. Also, this is Facebook. Facebook's third-party fact-checkers. In the meantime, we are reducing its distribution on our platform. This is part of our standard process. To reduce the spread of misinformation, we temporarily reduce distribution pending fact-checker review. So if they don't like the story, they try to squash distribution of the story. Now notice, when you go to Andy Stone's Twitter bio, it's no coincidence that on his Twitter bio he lists as part of his roles communications for Facebook, but that he's an alumni of communications for the House Majority PAC, Democrat Senator Barbara Boxer, the DCCC, you know, the Democrat Congressional Campaign Committee, and Democrat House of Representatives McInerney. Open to your hot takes. How about this hot take, Andy? Incoming super chat from Chris O'Neill. Love your stuff, Neo. Wish you got more traction. Are you aware that if you search for NeoUnrealist, your channel shows up in search? But if you search NeoUnrealist, it doesn't? Yes. Chris O'Neill, this channel is suppressed by YouTube. Susan WikiWiki, in her infinite wisdom, doesn't want you to find this channel. So if you search for it, it won't come up. That's just a fact of life. So I am aware of it. Also be aware that sometimes Susan WikiWiki will also, without your knowledge or consent, unsubscribe you from the channel. So keep an eye on that as well. That behavior. So here you got Andy Stone. This is the guy at Facebook. This guy who works for House Majority PAC, Senator Barbara Boxer, the Democrat Congressional Campaign Committee, and Representative McInerney. This is the guy that determines what stories get suppressed at Facebook during the final days of the election here. But he's not alone at Facebook. So we have Twitter locks the Trump campaign. They didn't just lock out suppression of the story, by the New York Post. They locked out the Trump campaign account over Hunter Biden's post over on Twitter. So this is from the Epoch Times. It's behind a firewall, but you can see the headline. Twitter locks Trump campaign account over Hunter Biden post, says Trump campaign spokesman. I mean, this is unreal. Now you have social media exercising power over the campaign. for the president of the United States. Now, Twitter Trust and Safety, they came out later on with this bullcrap ex post facto explanation for what they did. This is on October 14th that this came out. So they had to start making excuses because they had treated no other story this way ever, and they couldn't go forward with this as an example because they could never enforce it. It'd be unenforceable, and you'll see why. We want to provide much needed clarity around the actions we've taken with respect to 2 New York Post articles that were first tweeted this morning. The images contained in the articles included personal and private information, like email addresses and phone numbers, which violate our rules. Well, guess what, guys? All kinds of private information has been posted up on Twitter for news stories. They haven't done this kind of stuff before. Do you think if CNN posted a news article, they would, of Trump's tax documents? Oh wait, they did. If MSNBC or did something like that they would suppress the story? No, of course not. As noted this morning, we also currently view materials included in the article as violations of our hacked materials policy. Well, what evidence did they have that that anything was hacked? According to the story that we got, the laptop was the property of the business owner as part of the standard contract, of a repair shop. If you drop off a computer to be repaired, if you don't pay your bill, if you don't come get your laptop in a certain amount of time, eventually it just becomes property of the shop. In this case, in the contract, it clearly spelled out if you didn't pay your bill and pick it up in 90 days, the shop was not going to store your stuff forever. They're going to take possession of your property. It's effectively abandoned. But, that's neither here nor there. Clearly, it wasn't hacked. The guy that turned it over to the FBI, the material, as far as the contract he had with Hunter Biden, clearly states he legally obtained the laptop. It was given to him and then abandoned. It was his. Commentary on or discussion about hacked materials, such as articles that cover them but do not include or link to the materials themselves, aren't a violation of this policy. Our policy only covers links to or images of hacked materials themselves. Well, this turned out to be a lie, because later on, one of the Senate subcommittees put on their website they used their Twitter account to link to something on their website, which was the story about Hunter Biden. They had no images, no pictures in that story, no links. It was just text. No private information. That was blocked by Twitter. So this turned out to be a lie. The policy established in 2018 prohibits the use of our service to distribute content obtained without authorization. Well, that sentence is a problem, and they had to climb down off that limb, because then that would stop them from basically talking about almost any news article, and like that would win a Pulitzer Prize historically, like the Pentagon Papers. Those were obtained without authorization. The story about Donald Trump's tax records, those documents were obtained without authorization. Just a million stories that you could think of over the years. How could you do journalism without obtaining documents that the subject presumably wouldn't authorize you to use? That describes basically every major breaking story of investigative journalism. That's the whole point. You usually have to obtain those materials, over the objections of the person who's trying to hide something, or the organization. We know we have more work to do to provide clarity, you don't say, in our product when we enforce our rules in this matter. Well, I'm not going to go anymore with this word salad. Just put it this way. It was so bad, that Jack Dorsey himself had to upbraid and correct his own Twitter safety people and say our communication around our actions on the New York Post article was not great, and blocking URL sharing via tweet or direct message with zero context as to why we're blocking unacceptable. Okay, so here you look. Dave Rubin asks Jack, do you shadow ban based on political beliefs? Simple yes or no will do. He says no. I don't think Jack runs Twitter anymore. We're not going to go into it here, but the Twitter safety people, they actually clapped back at Jack. Basically corrected him out in the open. Doubled down. So, I think Jack is a figurehead. He's a CEO in name only. He's basically the Queen of England. He has the title, but he doesn't have the power. So this censorship, let's be honest, had Twitter and Facebook and the powers that be not done that, I'll be honest with you, this story probably would have gone in one ear, out the other. Very few people, but the dedicated partisans, the guys like you that will watch a stream on a Sunday morning like this, you might have heard of this, you might have saw this and made note of it, and yelled and made a stink about it. But the vast majority of America wouldn't. Well, the problem with this action that they took is that a lot of people stood up and took notice. Like, what is it that they don't want us to see here? Basically, you had a Streisand effect. Now, this didn't appear to extend to YouTube, except maybe indirectly. I think this is more coincidence than anything else, but you had YouTube initiated another one of their great purges, and they took out a lot of channels that some of you may have watched. Among the channels that the YouTube nuked, while this is going on, let's read this list. Destroying the Illusion, Red Pill 78, Praying Medic, Joe M, iPod, X22 Report, Edge of Wonder, SGT Report, Space Shot 76, Woke Societies, Amazing Polly. I actually have seen some stuff from Amazing Polly. Truth and Art TV, Patriot Soapbox, Dustin Nemos, In the Matrix, XXX. And We Know, Stroppy Me, Just Informed Talk, Mouthy Buddha, No More News, The Last American Vagabond, Titus Frost, Dollar Vigilante, and World Alternative Media. So if any of those, if you guys follow those and you want to know what happened to them, you're probably going to have to look for them on BitChute, or it says here also Steam It, some of them. So if you want to find out where they went, you can check that out. The article at Zero Hedges, Blatant Censorship, The Great YouTube Purge Accelerates. So if any of these content creators or somebody you were following, some of them even have links that you could follow to BitChute. So take a look at that there if you want to find those people, if you can't keep track of them. But let's just remember, who are these people at Twitter Safety? As the New York Post in an article from earlier in this year called the Ministry of Tweet. We have the Ministry of Tweet. That's a reference to the Ministry of Truth from 1984, for those of you not familiar. This is one of these so-called neutral fact checkers over there that are covering the election. This guy, this Yoel Roth, here's two of his tweets. I'm just saying, we fly over those states that voted for a racist tangerine for a reason. So that's him in 2016, reacting the week of the election that Donald Trump won. Also, January of 2017, just a little over a month and change later. Yes, that person in the pink hat is clearly a bigger threat to your brand of feminism than actual German officials in the White House. That's not what you call them, Nazis. I'm just being cute with Susan Wiki. So these are the neutral observers. Now that when that story came out, I know here Trump, you knew he was going to hold that one out. He's like, look at one of these so-called neutral fact checkers that covers my account. So let's briefly read details of this Twitter fact checker This is from May 27th, 2020, guys. This is only like a few months ago. Who is one of the people that fact checks these articles. The head of Twitter's post-policing team that flagged a pair of tweets by President Trump, marking them with fact check labels, has a questionable history of politically charged tweets of his own. Twitter's head of site integrity, Yoel Roth, he's the head of site integrity, guys, who's in charge of the team responsible for developing and enforcing the... So you ever notice that all these guys that work in these fact-checking and site integrity and trust and safety roles in social media are all like people that used to work for Democrats or people that are screeching partisans? Yoel Roth, who is in charge of the team responsible for developing and enforcing the social media site's rules, faced heavy criticism Wednesday for previous 2017 tweets in which he referred to Team Trump as actual Nazis in the White House and called Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell a personality-free bag of farts. How does a personality-free bag of farts like Mitch McConnell actually win elections? So as your neutral Twitter trusted safety people, here's the woman at Facebook in the public policy. Here we go. Anna Mankanju, Facebook's public policy and legal expert, leading efforts to ensure election integrity, was Joe Biden's senior policy advisor for Ukraine. You can't make this up. Not only did the person at Facebook in charge of their public policy and their legal expert for election integrity, not only did she work for Joe Biden as a senior policy advisor, she was his senior policy advisor on Ukraine. You can't make this up. This guy, at Fool Nelson on Twitter, he's right. She should recuse herself from the New York Post stories. How is she going to decide to squash stories for which she was Joe Biden's senior policy advisor on the subject of the stories? This is her own bio, people. This isn't made up. I'll read to you from her own bio. Here's at the Atlantic Council, their website. This is Anna Mankanju. Here's the About section. Let's see. Anna Mankanju is a non-resident senior fellow with the Transatlantic Security Initiative. She's a public policy and legal expert working at Facebook, where she leads efforts to ensure election integrity on the platform. Previously, she was the special policy advisor for Europe and Eurasia to former U.S. Vice President Joe Biden, senior policy advisor to Ambassador for Samantha Power at the United States Mission to the United Nations, director for Russia at the National Security Council, and the chief of staff for European and NATO policy in the Office of the Secretary of Defense. You cannot make this up. She's neck deep in this story, and she's one of the people at Facebook deciding that you can't see the story. It's unreal. Twitter changes guidelines following post-censorship controversy. So, the long and short of it was that Twitter realized that after a couple of days, their previous stance would not hold up. It would not. It basically wouldn't hold up because you can't go forward. You can't go forward with that standard that they had set up for that story, because then basically almost no journalism, but would be allowed on Twitter. So here's how they changed it. Twitter's changed its hack materials policy in the wake of the social media giant's controversial decision to block an exclusive report by the Post on Hunter Biden's emails. Now remember, the New York Post, if you're not aware, it's one of the oldest newspapers in the United States. It might be the oldest continuous newspaper, if I'm not mistaken. It's like 200 years old. I believe it was the newspaper of Alexander Hamilton, if you can believe this. Twitter will no longer remove allegedly hacked content unless it is shared by hackers themselves or by accomplices, and will label questionable tweets rather than blocking them from being shared. Vijaya Gad, Twitter's legal policy and trusted safety leader, posted online. If you ever watched the last time, not the last time, when Tim Pool went on the Joe Rogan podcast with Jack Dorsey, the woman that Jack Dorsey brought with him, and the woman who seemed to have real power and control over Twitter was this Vijaya Gad, or Gaddy. She's the Twitter legal policy and trusted safety leader. Basically, what I believe is if she's not the one running Twitter, she's one of the group of people that runs Twitter. It ain't Jack Dorsey. Over the last 24 hours, we've received significant feedback, criticism, from critical to supportive about how we enforced our hacked materials policy yesterday, Gaddy tweeted. After reflecting on this feedback, we've decided to make changes to the policy and how we enforce it. Because you couldn't enforce it, you couldn't have journalism. So, without going too much further into the censorship, well, corporate censorship angle. Remember, it's not a government doing it; it's social media. I think it's interesting that former New York City police chief Bernard Kerik, who did a stint in prison, remember, so keep that in mind, has also had an opportunity to review the hard drive that Giuliani has. And according to Bernie Kerik, former New York City police chief, if the FBI and the Justice Department arrested Paul Manafort, then Hunter, James, and Joe Biden belong in handcuffs. And that's just for starters. And he puts hashtag China, hashtag Iraq, hashtag Ukraine. Apparently there's some stuff on that hard drive involving Joe taking money from Iraq, or some kind of Iraqi scam. So that's kind of crazy. But just understand the significance of this. And I think the president's son, Eric Trump, he points out rightly that the salary of a U.S. senator is $174,000 a year. This is Joe Biden's house, and he says, seems legit. How does Joe Biden have three multi-million-dollar houses, on a senator's salary? Look at his palatial estate here, with the grounds, this surrounding wall with the gate. We have the grounds. This looks like a covered pool here with a pool house. Joe's living large. Here's the street by his house here, and here's the gate. Joe, he's doing well for a guy that at the moment is currently unemployed. Well, I guess he can draw a bit of a salary from his campaign, but for a guy who was pulling down 174 a year, he's not bad. 174, that'll get you comfortable. That's not going to get you three humongous houses. Let's see here. Twitter locked out Trump campaign's official account for promoting, so we knew that. Update, House GOP wants an emergency oversight hearing. So the long and short of this, the social media side of this, is that Jack Dorsey and Mark Zuckerberg are going to have to go up to Washington next week. I believe they're either Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday there's a hearing. Or is it Friday? Pick a day. Dorsey's going to be up in front of a Senate committee at some point next week, and he's going to have to explain under oath what the hell is going on. And you get a guy like Ted Cruz on this. Ted Cruz knows what's going on. He knows where the bodies are buried. I mean, I wouldn't, if it was just Lindsey Graham, who cares? I mean, Lindsey Graham is a pushover. Ted Cruz is a pit bull, and he's not like most of the boomers that don't know what they're talking about. Ted Cruz isn't a boomer, and he knows what he's talking about. So let's hear what he has to say on what he wants to hear from these people.
We've seen a remarkable development. We have seen big tech. We've seen Twitter and Facebook actively interfering in this election in a way that has no precedent in the history of our country. Yesterday, the New York Post broke a story alleging serious corruption of Joe Biden and Hunter Biden concerning Ukraine. The allegations in the New York Post story, if true, indicate that Vice President Biden lied when he said he had never discussed his son's business dealings. That story, once the New York Post broke it, was blocked by Twitter and Facebook. Anyone who attempted to share it was prevented from sharing it on Twitter or Facebook. The New York Post itself, when it attempted to put out its story, was blocked on Twitter and Facebook. The New York Post has the fourth largest circulation of any newspaper in this country. Never before have we seen active censorship of a major press publication with serious allegations of corruption of one of the two candidates for president. That was last night. This morning, the story escalated and got even worse. The New York Post broke a second story of a series of emails that indicate yet more corruption, in this instance, the Biden family receiving millions of dollars from communist China government officials. Just minutes ago, I tried to share that story on Twitter. And Twitter is actively blocking, right now, this instant, stories from the New York Post alleging corruption and the Biden family receiving millions of dollars from communist China. This is election interference, and we are 19 days out from an election. It has no precedent in the history of democracy. The Senate Judiciary Committee wants to know what the hell is going on. Chairman Lindsey Graham and I have discussed this at length, and the committee today will be noticing a markup on Tuesday to issue a subpoena to Jack Dorsey, the CEO of Twitter, to testify before the Senate Judiciary Committee next Friday, to come before this committee and the American people and explain why Twitter is abusing their corporate power to silence the press and to cover up allegations of corruption.
All right, so you heard the gist of it there. Ted Cruz, Lindsey Graham, they're going to hold this guy up. Basically, but the best they could do, I mean, they don't really have the power to do anything. I mean, the only thing they could do is reform Section 230. Not likely with the current House controlled by Nancy Pelosi. But at the very least, they can get Jack Dorsey up there in front of the cameras and under oath explain this bullcrap that was going on last week. And they've got to get something going so that maybe in the next congressional session. And I think this was the push that needed it. Because if you're a Republican in Congress and you don't see that this is a direct attack at these people, you know, for the rest of time. I mean, because if it's not going to end with Trump, they're going to do this with all Republicans going forward. How are you going to get your story out if they're going to block anytime a bad story happens about your opponent? So here you had Glenn Greenwald. He's a fairly far left journalist. He thinks what Facebook and Twitter did, he calls it in his opinion, crossed the line far more dangerous than what they censored. Just weeks before the election, the tech giants unite to block access to incriminating reporting about their preferred candidate. Basically, they picked a side, people. Remember the important part about Section 230. You have to be a neutral public platform. If you pick a side, you're afoul of the Section 230 protection. The New York Post is one of the country's oldest and largest newspapers, founded in 1801 by Alexander Hamilton. So 219 years old, people. This isn't some pamphlet that is being handed out in the corner in the village. Only 3 U.S. newspapers are more widely circulated. Ever since it was purchased in 1976 by media mogul Rupert Murdoch, it has been well known, like most Murdoch-owned papers, for right-wing tabloid sensationalism, albeit one that has some real reporters and editors and is capable of reliable journalism. On Wednesday morning, the paper published on its cover what it heralded as a blockbuster scoop, smoking gun evidence in its words, in the form of emails, purportedly showing that Joe Biden's son Hunter traded on his father's position by securing favors from the then vice president to benefit the Ukrainian energy company Burisma, which paid the supremely unqualified Hunter $50,000. Well, it could have been $83,000 from some reports that I saw, each month to sit on its board, while the Biden campaign denies that any such meetings or favors ever occurred. Neither the campaign nor Hunter, at least as of now, has denied the authenticity of the emails. Remember that important part, people. Days later, neither Hunter Biden, Joe Biden, or his campaign have ever denied that these emails aren't real. I mean, these emails are real. The Post's hyping of the story as some cataclysmic bombshell was overblown, while these emails, if authenticated, provide some new details and corroboration. The broad outlines of this story have long been known. So he's right. What I mentioned to you earlier when I started the stream was, this is not news to a lot of you. What it is corroboration, details, evidence showing, yeah, you know, we thought maybe this was the case. It looked that way. Now we know it. So that's what Glenn Greenwald is saying. This is not like this is some crazy idea. Along with emails related to Burisma, the New York Post also gratuitously published several photographs of Hunter, who's spoken openly and commendably of his past struggles with substance abuse in what appeared to be various states of drug use. There was no conceivable public interest in publishing those and every reason not to. The Post's explanation how these documents were obtained is bizarre at best. They claim that Hunter Biden... So he's knocking the Post for showing the pictures of Hunter Biden. And I would too. My only thought is that the reason they did that was partly titillation. I mean, it is the Post. I mean, they're a tabloid. But also to show that it was Hunter Biden's laptop. I mean, how would they have those photos, those deeply private personal photos, if it wasn't Hunter Biden's laptop? Anyway, incoming super chat from Kenrick50. Cruz will do nothing. He will talk a big game because of the election, then do nothing in the end like always. Twitter was doing this crap when Republicans had the House, and Cruz didn't even try then. Not really. Not to this degree. I mean, what's Cruz going to do now? He has one House of Congress. The House is not passing any legislation to change any of this. Not now, and just not ever unless Republicans gain control of it. You have to understand, most of the Republicans, they're boomers or worse. Especially back then, they just didn't know what was going on. If they, I don't even want to say they didn't know. It's not like they had no way of knowing. It wouldn't occur to them to care. For a lot of these people, they don't live on Twitter. If they have a Twitter account, their assistants manage that. Their interns, they probably even set it up for them. These people don't live on Twitter. Ted Cruz, he knows. That guy operates his own Twitter account probably. I mean, I'm not saying he doesn't have an intern or somebody that does it, but that guy, he knows. So the people that have been elected recently to the Republican Party, a lot of the newer ones, they know. They know this is a big deal. But you got to understand, those guys from 3 or 4 years ago that ran the show, remember, you still had a lot of the establishment Republicans around back then. There's still a lot of them around now. But the guys that ran the show back then, no. These people, it wouldn't have occurred to them to care, let alone do anything about it. Exactly. Paul Ryan. Paul Ryan was gonna act against the big business. Please, that guy is the poster boy for the Chamber of Commerce. So here we go. But for the Post, for all its longevity, power, and influence, ran smack into two entities far more powerful than it: Facebook and Twitter. Almost immediately upon publication, pro-Biden journalists created a climate of extreme hostility and suppression. Now, that's the irony of this. The pressure to squelch the story was coming from journalists. It's the most bizarre thing I've ever seen. Journalists actively trying to keep news out of the public sphere. It was nuts. Pro-Biden journalists created a climate of extreme hostility and suppression toward the Post story, making clear that any journalist even mentioning it would be roundly attacked for the crime of simply noting the story on Twitter while pointing out its flaws. New York Times reporter Maggie Haberman was instantly vilified to the point where her name, along with the phrase MAGA Haberman, were trending on Twitter. I'm not making this up. I saw that. And I was like, Maggie Haberman's with New York Times. What's she got to do with the story? It's a Post story. They were calling her MAGA Haberman because she just talked about the New York Post story, and she it's not like she was, hyping it up as this big deal. She was critical of certain aspects of it and suspicious. That Haberman is a crypto Trump supporter is preposterous for so many reasons, including the fact that she is responsible for countless front-page Times stories that reflect negatively on the president. Moreover, the 2016 Clinton campaign considered Haberman one of their most favorable reporters. Remember the leak in the leaked Clinton emails, or was it the Podesta emails? That they said that Haberman was their go-to gal for getting stuff out in the news. The two Silicon Valley giants saw that hostile climate and reacted. Just 2 hours after the story was online, Facebook intervened. So you know that part of it, where Facebook and Twitter went in. That the First Amendment right of free speech is inapplicable to these questions goes without saying. That constitutional guarantee restricts the actions of governments, not private corporations such as Facebook and Twitter. But glibly pointing this out does not come close to resolving this controversy. That actions by gigantic corporations are constitutional does not mean that they are benign. State censorship is not the only kind of censorship. Private sector repression of speech and thought, particularly in the internet era, can be as dangerous and consequential. Imagine, for instance, if these two Silicon Valley giants united with Google to declare, henceforth we will ban all content that is critical of President Trump and or the Republican Party, but will actively promote criticisms of Joe Biden and the Democrats. Well, I don't think they'd find that acceptable. Do you think these people would be screaming my private corporation? Would anyone encounter difficulty understanding why such a decree would constitute dangerous corporate censorship? It's constitutional, right? They could do whatever they want. Just imagine how stupid this idea is. Imagine if the phone company started cutting off your service because they didn't like the content of your phone calls politically. Can you imagine AT&T cutting into your phone call? Oh, you're not allowed to criticize the president on your phone call, so we're gonna block your service. It's preposterous. It's no different. The only difference here is that these social media companies have Section 230 to hide behind. So if you want to see more about that, go to The Intercept. This is Glenn Greenwald's Facebook and Twitter cross the line, far more dangerous than what they censor. He's not the only one. There's other journalists printing similar things, and these are people that I wouldn't even call them right wing. Certainly not. In the case of Glenn Greenwald or somebody like, say, Jonathan Turley. Here's a guy, Patel, Neil Patel. He's with the Daily Caller, so he's probably on the right. He called the big tech's election interference has gone too far. That's what it is. It's election interference. Censoring the Biden story. How social media becomes state media. So here's Jonathan Turley's opinion on it. Again, not a right-wing person. Jonathan Turley's a lefty. Chinese citizens watched President Xi Jinping deliver an important speech this week, not far from Hong Kong. Well, not the whole speech. Xi apparently is ill, and every time he went into a coughing spasms, China's state media cut away so that he wouldn't be shown only in perfect health. Does Xi have the coronavirus or something? Why are they censoring his coughs? Xi's coughs came to mind as Twitter and Facebook prevented Americans from being able to read the New York Post's explosive allegations of influence peddling by Hunter Biden. The article cited material reportedly recovered from a laptop. It purportedly showed requests for Hunter Biden to use his influence on his father. That's what you got to understand, guys. Before I'm done with this, and this is going to be a long one. you're going to see they actually say to Hunter Biden what they expect from him. And that's basically what it is. I mean, they're telling him, we expect you, for this money we're paying you, to deliver on these items for us, basically gain us access to your to people in the Obama administration and the powers that be in the United States. That's what they wanted from this guy. That's why they were paying this crackhead, this guy that had no qualifications to to be in that role for that company. That's why they were giving him all this money, guys. I mean, it's obvious, and they spell it out for him. So here, this guy goes on to point out, people that are trying to dismiss this as, Russian disinformation, or as they call it, compromat, they forget one thing about classic compromat, which is the Russian term for compromising information. That, for the most part, it's usually true, because it's not very useful to the Russians to spread a bogus information that could be obviously shot down. Think about it. If the Russians were to come out and put out something so crazy that the person could easily deny it and show proof that it wasn't true, well, then the compromat isn't very useful now, is it? Indeed, it's most damaging, according to Turley, and most useful when it is true. Otherwise, you deny the allegations and expose the lie. Hunter Biden has yet to deny this was his laptop, his emails, his images. If thousands of emails and images were fabricated, then serious crimes are committed. But if the emails and images are genuine, then the Bidens appear to have lied for years as a raw influence peddling scheme worth millions stretched from China to Ukraine to Russia. Moreover, these countries likely have had the compromising information all along, while the Bidens and the media were denying reports of illicit activities. Either way, this was major news. The response of Twitter and Facebook, however, was to shut it all down. Major media companies also imposed a virtual blackout on the allegations. It didn't matter that thousands of emails were available for review or that the Bidens did not directly address the material. It was all declared to be fake news. The tech companies' actions are an outrageous example of open censorship and bias. It shows how private companies effectively can become state media working for one party. This, of course, was more serious than deleting coughs, but it was based on the same excuse of protecting, quote, the public from distractions or distortions. Indeed, it was the realization of political and academic calls that have been building for years. Democratic leaders from Hillary Clinton to Representative Adam Schiff of California have long demanded such private censorship. Basically, remember Adam Schiff, he was calling the shots, with social media during the Ukraine stuff and the Russia collusion story. He would say, he's the one that said you can't print the name of the whistleblower. No law preventing you from doing so, by the way. But he said it, and the social media companies, they fell in line. Joe Biden himself demanded that those companies remove President Trump's statement about voting fraud as fake news. Academics have lined up to support calls for censorship too. Recently, Harvard law professor Jack Goldsmith and University of Arizona law professor Andrew Keen Woods called for Chinese-style internet censorship and declared that in the great debate of the past 2 decades about freedom versus control of the network, China was largely right and the United States was largely wrong. So you have now, it's becoming popular on the left in certain circles to call for Chinese-style censorship and basically end the First Amendment. It turns out traditional notions of journalism and free press are outdated too, and China again appears to be the model for the future. Recently, Stanford Communications Professor Emeritus Ted Glasser publicly denounced the notion of objectivity in journalism as too constraining for reporters seeking, quote, social justice. In an interview with the Stanford Daily, Glasser insisted that journalism needed to free itself from this notion of objectivity to develop a sense of social justice. He said reporters must embrace the role of activists and that it's hard to do that under the constraints of objectivity. Problem solved. I mean, it goes on and on. Here's another piece I'm going to refer to you if you want to read Jonathan Turley's opinions on this. censoring the Biden story, how social media becomes state media. That's what I said. Does it matter if it's not the government doing it? If you have a handful of companies that are essentially have a, I don't want to say a monopoly, but a near monopoly, an oligopoly, whatever you want to call it, a cartel essentially on these dissemination of information. Does it really matter at that point if the state uses, a handful of corporations as their proxy? So, of course, I'm not even going to go into this. The Washington Post, here's David Ignatius, the truth behind the Hunter Biden non-scandal. According to them, Joe Biden wasn't involved in the firing of Victor Shokin because the Washington Post says so. Even though we all saw him on that video, I'll show it to you guys later, bragging that he did. And then you have the same voices, the very same anonymous sources that were telling you about how Trump was a Russian agent for years. They're now saying that these photos and emails were part of a Russian influence operation. Nothing to see here. It's the Russians again. It's just like, do they think people are going to believe this? It's the Russians, guys. All those pictures of Biden smoking crack. But here's Rudy. He gave an interview to the Daily Caller. What we haven't seen from the Hunter Biden hard drive. This is a 26-minute interview. I'll just give you the highlights. Basically, there's going to be more stuff coming out. So here are the highlights as listed by the Daily Caller. Though he claimed the information he said he will release in the coming weeks will effectively end Biden's election chances within 10 days of Election Day, he would not commit to ever releasing the hard drive in its entirety to be inspected by the media. Something tells me we're going to see a lot more from that hard drive, guys. just a hunch. Giuliani says the hard drive originally came into his possession after the Mac shop owner created 4 copies to distribute to his friends because he feared for his life. He passed along the original physical hard drive to the FBI and finally handed over the copy in Giuliani's possession to Robert Costello, Giuliani's attorney, months later. He claims the shop owner attempted to give it to other Republican operatives, but no one would take it. Giuliani claims the hard drive corroborates a tip he received from a confidential informant about a secret meeting between Hunter Biden and former Deputy Secretary of State Tony Blinken at the State Department that violates the Foreign Agents Registration Act, FARA. Remember, that's what they locked Paul Manafort up for. That's what they went after him for. That's the leverage that they were using to threaten General Flynn's son. That they were in violation of the Foreign Agents Registration Act. So it's apparently good enough to go after Republicans for FARA violations, but not Democrats. Hunter Biden's son. Joe Biden's son. In total, he claims that the hard drive includes 6 or 7 FARA violations. Giuliani claimed that text messages sent by Hunter Biden indicate a kickback program where he sent half of his salary back to Joe Biden, which is a Chinese method of corruption. He did not answer questions about whether there were bank documents or other evidence supporting that claim contained on the hard drive. So if you want to see that, you can go over to the Daily Caller. The article is exclusive one-on-one with Rudy Giuliani. What haven't we seen from the Hunter Biden hard drive? And why won't he release it in full? It's 26 minutes long. Take a look at it if that interests you. But here's Rudy in a much shorter interview, obviously, with Lou Dobbs. Let's see what he had to tell Lou.
Joining us tonight is President Trump's personal attorney, former New York City Mayor Rudy Giuliani, also host of the podcast Common Sense and Chat with the Mayor show on WABC Radio in New York. Rudy, great to see you. And this is
good to see you.
Extraordinary expose, and it is so powerful, so important that the American public know what's happening. Your role in it has been central, and that of your attorney. Can you quickly tell us how you came to be at the center of this?
Sure.
And that these got to the New York Post.
You know what? I'll tell you what convinces me that this is very damaging. All they do is attack the process and attack me and attack the people who found it. They can't attack any of the substance of the emails, the texts, or the photographs, which are clearly Hunter Biden's. No question about it. And I'll explain that in a minute. So here's how we found out about it. Hunter Biden brought this hard drive in to be repaired, I'm going to say about a year and a half ago. He left it with a merchant. The merchant repaired it and then tried to reach Hunter Biden to give it back to him. He could never reach him. 90 days passed. At 90 days, according to the agreement signed by Hunter Biden, which I have a copy of, the hard drive was abandoned, became the property of the merchant. A few months later, the merchant started hearing these things on television that the Bidens were saying and was being said about them, and he became very nervous, and he decided he better take a look at what he had because it might be criminal in nature. So he opened it up, looked at it, and his words were shocked. He said he was shocked when he looked at it because he said the pictures were disgusting, they were dirty, they were pornographic, and they had evidence, clear evidence of any number of crimes right on the pictures. And then he said he went to the texts and the emails, and even though he didn't know much about the situation, it was clear they were hiding money, laundering money, involved with the foreign countries we said they were involved in. He was particularly angry because I was being attacked about Ukraine, and it showed the whole Ukrainian transaction. So he called in the FBI. He gave it to the FBI. He told the FBI agent that he was afraid that something might happen to him. And the FBI agent told him,
what time period was this?
Very odd statement. So this would be about the time of the impeachment. And he told the FBI.
So I didn't want to play the whole thing. I just wanted Rudy to verify when this happened, because this is to knock down the silliness of the Russian disinformation campaign. The FBI picked up this computer at the beginning of December, guys, of last year. It's now October. How would the Russians know that this information was going to come out exactly in October if the laptop itself left control of anybody that they could get to in December? This laptop, which we presume is Hunter Biden's, and you'll see why, which we believe was dropped off in April of 2019, you'd have to be some kind of psychic to plant the bullcrap in April of 2019 and expect it to bear fruit in October of 2020. I mean, I understand that foreign intelligence agencies are good. They're not that good, people. But earlier I mentioned that that subpoena that when they seized that laptop, they presented the guy that owned the store with a subpoena. It was a grand jury subpoena, but the guy who signed it is curious. This Joshua Wilson, this FBI agent, shares the same name with the FBI's top child porn lawyer. So, how many Joshua Wilsons? I mean, it's not, I guess, not out of the realm of possibility that there's another Joshua Wilson working in the DC area or, FBI. But why would their top child porn special agent be the guy that signed this subpoena and came and took the laptop? That's weird. The recent New York Post bombshell reports on Hunter Biden's alleged laptop comments included a curious piece of evidence, a photograph of an FBI subpoena which bears the signature of the agency's top child porn investigator, Special Agent Joshua Wilson. According to the Post, a laptop was dropped off. Okay, you know that part. They described the raunchy 12-minute video appearing to show Hunter smoking crack, engaged in an act with an unidentified woman, as well as numerous other explicit images. FBI agent Wilson's identity was confirmed by both Western Journal and Business Insider, the latter of which compared his signature to a 2012 criminal complaint and concluded that it clearly matches the unreversed signature on the subpoena published by the New York Post. As the Business Insider notes, it's unclear whether the FBI employs more than one agent named Joshua Wilson, but the available evidence seems to show Joshua Wilson, who signed a subpoena for Hunter Biden's laptop, and the Joshua Wilson who investigates CP for the FBI are the same person. This raises the possibility, not explored by the Post, that the FBI issued the subpoena for reasons unrelated to Hunter Biden's role in Ukraine and Burisma. So they ask, why is the FBI's top CP lawyer involved in the Hunter Biden laptop case? Now, Chanel Ryan, she's a reporter with One America News. She sent a tweet, made a tweet on the 15th, saying that she had seen the contents of the hard drive. Apparently, she went to Rudy and looked at it, and her description of what she saw was drugs, underage obsessions, and power deals. Druggy Hunter makes Anthony Weiner's down under selfie addiction look normal. So is she saying, when she says underage obsessions, that there's some CP on that laptop? Well, this is interesting because I don't know if this means anything, because this is a very sketchy source. But they're saying this clear, well, I guess this source, which is citing a Chinese whistleblower, claiming that the Chinese have some compromat of their own. Chinese whistleblower reveals Hunter Biden's sex tapes contain video of Joe Biden's son abusing multiple underage Chinese teens. I don't know. I think if that was on there, we'd probably have heard about that already. But here's this Chinese guy talking about what he believes China has on Hunter Biden.
好的，这个谁咱们就不说了。本来是他们给司法据细据可靠的，过几天大家会在外媒都会一个个见到。说江增孟江大家知道是曾，知道是谁？孟出手了，有3份重要的硬盘已经到了司法部手上。本来是他们给司法部的，但是被司法部里面的这个拜登这一派给按下来了。但是鬼使神差咱们爆料革命的战友具体谁
So let me stop there. He's saying that Biden, remember the Department of Justice had the laptop. He's saying that Biden and had people in the Department of Justice basically squelch the FBI or the Department of Justice doing anything with that laptop.
谁咱们就不说了，大家司法部大家知道然后把这个终于到了川普总统手上。很多人说这到底什么东西说出来肯定让大家震惊绝对震惊。大家收好心脏把心脏先吃点这个心脏病的药准备好。拜登之子亨特拜登这个东西回头都可以验证的。咱们说的都是叫做站在今天说未来今天说未来的这个说未来站在未来说历史亨特拜登的哪些东西黄色视频。
All right, so there he first mentions it, sex tapes. So, guys, this I cannot corroborate any of this. Do not take this as gospel, but this is the quote whistleblower claim of what's on these.
这个虐童视频，一家一家的这个亨特拜登的这个就是黄色的极其黄的可以说是虐童的，极其让人看到完全就把中国人不当人的这个这是谁拍的？ 中共拍的啊。
He's accusing the Chinese Communist Party of having filmed these interactions between Hunter Biden and underage Chinese girls.
仅是视频吗？仅是黄色吗？是不是？不止，大家告诉大家啊，拜登跟习王，就拜登之子啊，我说现在这所有的拜登都是拜登之子签的一个秘密协议，里面预付款就签协议就给了100万啊，就小费，后面给了1000万。牵涉45亿美元，45亿美元啊！
Okay, so what he's talking about there, that actually did happen. Biden had a deal with this Chinese group linked to the Communist Party, and they did give them basically $4.5 million of investment to manage. So that number does jive with one of the numbers that I've seen on the story with the Chinese story. This CEC that we're going to be learning about. These Chinese billionaires that are connected with the Communist Party and the People's Liberation Army.
45亿美元
He says 4.5 billion. I believe it was million. I mean, you got to remember, we're talking about the difference between renminbis and dollars. So there's a massive currency difference.
的利益，就是亨特拜登啊，这里面真的是要救新闻啊！我觉得我说到这时候，我得稳定一下。这个据说啊，这个3个硬盘啊，1个硬盘啊，刚才说的是拜登的这个黄色的视频，钱啊协议这个啊，还有双修。就像陈峰一样啊，里面还涉及到。
Right, so he's going to start talking about Kazakhstan. The long and short of it is this guy claims that there's information on there that maybe has more to do with something else as opposed to the corruption involving Joe Biden. Who knows? I don't know. To me, this is not exactly the most reliable source here, so take that with a grain of salt. But I really do think that there's stuff on there that obviously that Hunter Biden and Joe Biden especially wouldn't like you to see, and I suspect before the election comes, we're probably going to see it. Just my prediction. And remember, this all is on the heels, like this passed with barely any notice. Remember, it was just like a week or two ago that the Senate Finance and Homeland Security Committee, they released that devastating report on Hunter Biden, Burisma, and corruption. Actually, here's the report right here. That's the title. Hunter Biden, Burisma, and corruption, the impact on U.S. government policy and related concerns. And if you remember the highlights of that report, they had, I think there was 11 major points. Here we have these major points here that in early 2015, the former acting deputy chief of mission at the U.S. Embassy in Kiev, Ukraine, George Kent, he raised concerns to officials in Vice President Joe Biden's office about the perception of a conflict of interest with respect to Hunter Biden's role on Burisma's board. Kent's concerns went unaddressed, and in September 2016, he emphasized in an email to his colleagues, furthermore, the presence of Hunter Biden on the Burisma board was very awkward for all U.S. officials pushing an anti-corruption agent in Ukraine. Guys, remember, Burisma was the most corrupt entity in Ukraine in terms of private entities. In October 2015, senior State Department official Amos Hochstein raised concerns with Vice President Biden as well as with Hunter Biden that Hunter Biden's position on Burisma's board enabled Russian disinformation efforts and risked undermining U.S. policy in Ukraine. So if you're someone who doesn't believe this laptop story, you're saying this is Russian disinformation, well, it turns out this guy in October 2015 was correct then. How is it not a conflict of interest if Hunter Biden's activities with Burisma basically led to this? So basically, he colluded with these people and put his father in this position. Although Kent believed that Hunter Biden's role on Burisma's board was awkward for all U.S. officials pushing an anti-corruption agenda in Ukraine, the committees are only aware of two individuals, Kent and former U.S. Special Envoy and Coordinator for International Energy Affairs Amos Hochstein, who raised concerns to Vice President Joe Biden or his staff. So even though they said everyone was impacted, only those two guys had the balls to take it up with Biden and his staff. The awkwardness for Obama administration officials continued well past his presidency. Former Secretary of State John Kerry had knowledge of Hunter Biden's role on Burisma's board, but when asked about it at a town hall event in Nashua, New Hampshire, December 8th, 2019, Kerry falsely said, "I had no knowledge about any of that. None. No." Evidence to the contrary is detailed in Section 5. Well, it turns out Kerry's stepson, he's married to Teresa Heinz Kerry, apologies. His stepson was one of Joe Biden's friends and business partners. Now, apparently his stepson, had the brains not to get involved with Burisma, and he was one of the guys telling Joe Biden's son Hunter not to get involved with Burisma, that it was corrupt and that it was put their dads in a bad position. Former Assistant Secretary of State for European and Eurasian Affairs Victoria Nuland testified that confronting oligarchs would send an anti-corruption message in Ukraine. Kent told the committees that Zlochevsky, that's the guy that owns Burisma, was an odious oligarch. However, in December 2015, instead of following U.S. objectives of confronting oligarchs, Vice President Biden's staff advised him to avoid commenting on Zlochevsky and recommended he say, "I'm not going to get into naming names or accusing individuals." So already, you could see how Hunter Biden being on the board of Zlochevsky's company forced Vice President Joe Biden's staff to change Joe Biden's behavior and not mention Zlochevsky. How are you going to fight corruption and not mention the most corrupt guy in Ukraine? Hunter Biden was serving on Burisma's board, supposedly consulting on corporate governance and transparency, when Zlochevsky allegedly paid a $7 million bribe to officials serving under Ukraine's Prosecutor General Vitaly Yarema to shut the case against Zlochevsky. Kent testified that this bribe occurred in December 2014, 7 months after Hunter joined Burisma's board, and after learning about it, he and resident legal advisor reported this allegation to the FBI. Hunter Biden was a U.S. Secret Service protectee from January 29, 2009 to July 8, 2014. A day before his last trip as a protectee, Time published an article describing Burisma's ramped-up lobbying efforts to U.S. officials and Hunter's involvement in Burisma's board. So this story that they're saying in bullcrap was being reported in Time magazine all the way back in 2014, before anybody even knew Trump was going to run for president. So to believe this is all bullcrap, you'd have to believe that the Time magazine reporting from 6 years ago was also bogus. Before ending his protective detail, Hunter Biden received Secret Service protection on trips to multiple foreign locations, including Moscow, Beijing, Doha, Paris, Seoul, Manila, Tokyo, Mexico City, Milan, Florence, Shanghai, Geneva, London, Dublin, Munich, Berlin, Bogota. Bogota? What the hell is he doing in Bogota? Abu Dhabi, Nairobi, Hong Kong, Taipei, Buenos Aires, Copenhagen, Johannesburg, Brussels, Madrid, Mumbai, and Lake Como. Andrei Telezenko, the Democrats' personification of Russian disinformation, met with Obama administration officials, including Elizabeth Zentos, a member of Obama's National Security Council, at least 10 times. A Democrat lobbying firm, Blue Star Strategies, oh my God, that Blue Star is the worst. They pop up everywhere in the Ukraine story. Blue Star Strategies contracted with Telezenko from 2016 to 2017 and continued to request his assistance as recent as the summer of 2019. A recent news article detailed other extensive contacts between Telizhenko and Obama administration officials. In addition to the over $4 million paid by Burisma for Hunter Biden's and Archer's board memberships, Hunter Biden, his family, and Devon Archer received millions of dollars from foreign nationals with questionable backgrounds. Archer received $142,000 from Kengiz Rakishev of Kazakhstan, purportedly for a car. The same day Vice President Joe Biden appeared with Ukrainian Prime Minister Arseniy Yatsenyuk and addressed Ukrainian legislators in Kiev regarding Russia's actions in Crimea. Hunter Biden received $3.5 million wire transfer from Elena Baturina, the wife of the former mayor of Moscow. And let me tell you guys, in case you don't know, how do you become the mayor of Moscow in Russia? You got to know somebody, guys. Because guess who runs the city of Moscow? Who's resident in the city of Moscow? That's right, that's one Vladimir Putin. This mayor of Moscow, the former mayor, he died, was, let's just say he was a buddy of Putin's. And that this woman, this Elena Baturina, she's a corrupt oligarch in her own right. She's the richest, richest Russian billionaire oligarch in Russia. Why is she paying Hunter Biden $3.5 million in a wire transfer? Hunter Biden opened a bank account with Gong Wendong to fund a $100,000 global spending spree with James Biden and Sarah Biden. Do you know a lot of Chinese Communist Party connected officials in China who are opening a $100,000 expense accounts on your behalf so you could take a global shopping spree? Hunter Biden had business associations with Ye Jianming, Gong Wendong, and other Chinese nationals linked to the communist government and the People's Liberation Army. Those associations resulted in millions of dollars in cash flow. And guess what? The New York Post has further information on that. We'll see that. Hunter Biden paid non-resident women who were nationals of Russia or other Eastern European countries and who appear to be linked to an Eastern European prostitution or human trafficking ring. So that's a lot of the highlights of this report. Remember, this was a report put out by the Kremlin. This wasn't reported by the New York Post. This is the U.S. Senate Committee on Homeland Security and Government Affairs, the majority staff report. So the computer repairman, he's been interviewed in a couple of places now. Here they got the title of this, Delaware's most famous computer repairman. Hunter Biden's alleged laptop contained, quote, disturbing items. We've gone into some of those items now, so it's funny that they're asking this guy. I want to know why these news outlets, they have no problem interviewing the repairman, the shopper, the repair shop owner about what's on the laptop, but none of them seem to be asking Hunter or Joe Biden about the, quote, disturbing items on the laptop. Somebody needs to explain that to me. It's inbounds to ask the repairman about the materials on a laptop, which is clearly Hunter Biden, but no one's asking Hunter or Joe about it. What? It's amazing to me. Now, Rudy, he dropped this, he sprinkled this one out over the weekend. I think it was on Saturday. Was it Friday night or Saturday? Of this text message from Hunter Biden to his daughter, Naomi. And this is a quote from the text. Unlike Pop, that's Joe Biden, of course, his father, I won't make you give me half of your salary. So, in a personal text message to his daughter, here we have Hunter Biden claiming that Joe Biden took half his salary. Wow. So this makes it, that's what you have to understand. If these people are giving millions of dollars to Hunter Biden, and if, as he's saying to his daughter, if he's not lying, that Pop makes him give up half his salary, or that he's holding it basically on behalf of Joe Biden, then that explains it. I mean, sure, you can't bribe Joe Biden himself, but if you give Joe Biden's son the money, and then Joe Biden is the one, and Hunter Biden, I believe, is the one who's paying for all these houses. Remember I asked before, How does Joe Biden have 3 houses on a $174,000 a year senator salary? Well, now you know. Hunter bought them for him. I believe that's the rationale given. How Joe Biden, this man that as of 2009, remember, as recently as 2009, Joe Biden listed his net worth, his total net worth, as less than $30,000. How did Joe Biden in 11 years go from a net worth of that he claimed was under $30,000 to three houses worth millions? Someone needs to explain that to me.
I also have here another email that didn't come out in the Post, and this email makes it clear what the game was. The RICO violation that I've been talking about for 2 years. I knew they did this. I could never prove it before. Basically, what happens is the bad guy like Zlochevsky or Yi Jinping or the Russian widow gives $3 million, $4 million, $5 million, $10 million to this drug addict, right? And what does the drug addict do? Well, he's writing to his daughter here. This is Hunter Biden to his daughter. He says, but I don't receive any respect, and that's fine, I guess. Works for you, apparently. I hope you all can do what I did and pay for everything for this entire family for 30 years. It's really hard, but don't worry. Unlike Pop, I won't make you give me half your salary.
Yeah, I mean, this...
So what basically, you got it, right? I mean, yeah. This is the Chinese method of corruption. Chapter 1 of Secret Empires by Peter Schweiker points out that when the Chinese do corruption, they don't give the money directly to you. They give it to your family, not your wife, because that has to be reported. So millions of dollars went to a drug addict, and millions of dollars went to a broken-down lobbyist, his brother, and they were paying all his bills, and they were kicking back half of it to Joe. That says to me he's a big crook. Now, don't be surprised. A man who starts his life in law school cheating, right? Plagiarized in law school, no doubt about that. Plagiarized when he ran in the 1980s. Don't be so surprised that he's crooked.
And these are allegations, too. They've been around for several months, but a lot of people are saying that this is...
These are not allegations. This is proof, Alex. This is proof. I've convicted maybe 100 people on less evidence than that.
So there's Rudy. Here's a screenshot of the text message that Rudy posted. I love all of you. So this is Hunter Biden to his own kids. This is to his daughter Naomi. But I don't receive any respect, and that's fine. Here's basically he's the Fredo of the family, except he's the Fredo that pulls in the millions of dollars from the foreign countries. Wow. I'm smart. I deserve respect. Remember that scene from The Godfather with Fredo? But I don't receive any respect, and that's fine, I guess. Works for you, apparently. I hope you all can do what I did and pay for everything for this entire family for 30 years. Like I mentioned, buying the houses for Pop, right? It's really hard, but don't worry. Unlike Pop, I won't make you give me half your salary. So he's complaining that he gets no respect and he's paying for everything. Though, you know, some guys would say that he's basically getting that money because of his father's name. So I mean, there's that. Let's see if Rudy's posted anything recently here. Nah, the last thing he posted was that he was going to be on Mark Levin's show. All right. So this I apologize, guys. This is I've been talking for like an hour and 40 minutes on this. There's just so much to this. New Biden email obliterates Burisma debunking over fired prosecutor. Giuliani teases more devastating releases. So like I said, Giuliani's going to sprinkle some more out of there. Here's the last segment from Tucker Carlson, where he went off on what's going on.
But not everything you hear is untrue, and not every story is complex. At the heart of the growing Biden-Ukraine scandal, for example, is a very straightforward question. Did Joe Biden subvert American foreign policy in order to enrich his own family? In 2015, Joe Biden was the sitting vice president of the United States. Included in his portfolio were U.S. relations with the nation of Ukraine. So at that moment, Vice President Joe Biden had more influence over the Ukrainian government and the Ukrainian economy than any other person on the globe outside of Eastern Europe. Biden's younger son, Hunter, knew that. He hoped to get rich from his father's influence. Emails published yesterday by the New York Post, documents apparently taken directly from Hunter Biden's own laptop, tell some of that story. Tonight, we'd like to bring you some more detail. We have another batch of emails, some exclusive to the show. We believe they also came from Hunter Biden's laptop. We can't prove that they did. We haven't examined that computer. But every detail that we could check, including Hunter Biden's personal email address at the time, suggests they are authentic. As we told you last night, if these emails are fake, this is the most complex and sophisticated hoax in history. It almost seems beyond human capacity. The Biden campaign clearly believes these emails are real. They have not said otherwise. We sent the body of them to Hunter Biden's attorney and never heard back. So with that in mind, here's what we have learned. On November 2nd, 2015 at 4:30 in the afternoon, a Burisma executive called Vadim Pozharsky emailed Hunter Biden and his business partner, Devin Archer. The purpose of the email, Pozharsky explains, is to, quote, be on the same page about our final goals, including but not limited to a concrete course of action. So what did Burisma want exactly? Well, good PR, for starters. The executive wanted, quote, high-ranking U.S. officials to express their, quote, positive opinion of Burisma. And then he wanted the administration to act on Burisma's behalf. Quote, the scope of work should also include organization of a visit of a number of widely recognized and influential current and or former U.S. policymakers to Ukraine in November, aiming to conduct meetings with and bring positive signals and message of support to Burisma. The goal, the executive explained, was to, quote, close down any cases/pursuits against the head of Burisma in Ukraine.
All right, let me stop that right there. Like I mentioned to you guys earlier, right there in that email, they're being very explicit about the role that Hunter Biden is expected to play to earn the 50, 83,000, whatever it was a month that they were paying this guy who didn't speak one word of Ukrainian, never went to Ukraine. Keep that in mind. He's sitting on the board of the Ukrainian gas giant, never in his life stepped foot in the country, and had no qualifications in oil or gas extraction. Yet this guy was making 50, 83, whatever it was, a month. They're explaining what... Let me go over that part again, where the guy's saying the scope of the work that should be done, you know, in terms of Hunter Biden and what he wants from Hunter and his pal Devin Archer.
Also include organization of a visit of a number of widely recognized and influential current and or former U.S. policymakers to Ukraine in November, aiming to conduct meetings with and bring positive signals and message of support to Burisma.
That's what they wanted from Hunter, guys. It's summed up right there. This is simple. You know, a lot of the times you try to make a complicated case to the American people, it might shoot over their heads, like with insider trading and all this. This is simple. They're giving Hunter Biden cash, and they want access. They want influence. He's influence peddling.
The goal, the executive explained, was to, quote, close down any cases/pursuits against the head of Burisma in Ukraine. So that couldn't be clearer, what they wanted. Burisma wanted Hunter Biden's father to get their company out of legal trouble with the Ukrainian government. And that's exactly what happened. 1 month later to the day, on December 2nd, 2015, Hunter Biden received a notice from a Washington PR firm called Blue Star Strategies. Blue Star Strategies apparently had been hired to lobby the administration on Ukraine. This show has exclusively obtained that email. Hello all, it began. This morning, the White House hosted a conference call regarding the vice president's upcoming trip to Ukraine. Attached is a memo from the Blue Star Strategies team with the...
There's the Blue Star Strategies people again. So that Blue Star Strategies was basically the outfit that Hunter Biden put on this task to rehabilitate Burisma's reputation in the United States and get that case closed in Ukraine, and get any and get the United States off their back about it. So there's Blue Star Strategies basically coordinating with White House conference calls. Attached is a memo from the Blue Star Strategies team. That's Hunter, an email to Hunter Biden with the minutes of the call. So they were on the call. They're sending him the minutes of the call. So he's getting paid by Burisma, and he's got his Blue Star Strategies team working with the White House on the vice president's trip to the Ukraine. Not a month after he got that email from the other guy that Tucker just read out, telling him that's what they wanted from him.
Minutes of the call, which outlined the trip's agenda and addressed several questions regarding U.S. policy toward Ukraine, end quote. So here you have a PR firm involved in an official White House foreign policy call. How could that happen? Good question, but it worked. Days later, Joe Biden flew to Ukraine and did exactly what his son wanted. The vice president gave a speech slamming the very Ukrainian law enforcement official who was tormenting Burisma, the exact guy. If the Ukrainian government...
Now that's the part that I'm gonna detail for you in a minute. Viktor Shokin, the guy that famously Joe Biden said, son of a bitch, they fired the guy. Remember that?
It doesn't fire its top prosecutor, a man called Viktor Shokin, Biden explained. The administration withhold $1 billion in American aid. Now, Ukraine is a poor country, so they had no choice but to obey. Biden's bullying worked. He bragged about it later.
I had gotten a commitment from Poroshenko and from Yatsenyuk that they would take action against the state prosecutor, and they didn't. So they said they were walking out to the press conference. I said, "No," I said, "I'm not going to, or we're not going to give you the $1 billion." They said, "You have no authority. You're not the president." The president said. I said, "Call him." I said, "I'm telling you, you're not getting $1 billion." I said, "You're not getting $1 billion. I'm going to be leaving here." And I think it was, 6 hours? I looked, I said, "I'm leaving in 6 hours. If the prosecutor's not fired, you're not getting the money." Well, son of a bitch. Got fired.
Now, Joe Biden gave that speech before the Council on Foreign Relations, so we pretend as if what he said was normal and officially authorized. This is how things are done. That's not true at all. This is bizarre. And the amazing thing about the video you just saw is that no one in that audience of Harvard graduates and other assorted smart people asked the glaringly obvious question. Why was the Vice President of the United States threatening a tiny country like Ukraine to fire its top prosecutor? That doesn't seem like a vice president's role. Well, now we know why. Viktor Shokin has signed an affidavit affirming that he was, in fact, investigating Burisma at the moment Joe Biden had him removed. Shokin said that before he was fired, administration officials pressured him into dropping the case against Burisma. He would not do that, so Joe Biden canned him. That's how things really work in Washington. Your son's got a lucrative consulting deal with the Ukrainian energy company. You tailor American foreign policy to help make him rich. Our foreign policy. Even at the State Department, possibly the most cynical agency in government, this seemed shockingly brazen. During the impeachment proceedings last fall, a State Department official called George Kent said it was widely known in Washington that the Bidens were up to something sleazy in Ukraine. Quote, "I was on a call with somebody on the vice president's staff, and I raised my concerns that I had heard that Hunter Biden was on the board of Burisma. This," George Kent noted, "could create a perception of a conflict of interest." So how did the vice president's office respond to this concern? Well, according to George Kent, quote, "The message that I recall hearing back was that the vice president's son, Beau, was dying of cancer, and there was no further bandwidth to deal with family-related issues at the time." Family-related issues. This was America's foreign...
So I want to point that out. The guy was talking to Biden's staff about this issue of American foreign policy, and his own staff shot back that there was no bandwidth to deal with family-related issues. So American foreign policy became wrapped up in the Biden family, trials and travails. That's exactly the reason why you wouldn't want your son to be involved with a corrupt Ukrainian gas oligarch.
Foreign policy being tailored to Joe Biden's son. 5 years later, Joe Biden still has not been forced to explain why he fired Ukraine's top prosecutor at precisely the moment his son was being paid to get him to fire Ukraine's top prosecutor. Nor has Joe Biden addressed whether or not he personally benefited from the Burisma contract. But there are tantalizing hints. Last night, former Mayor Rudy Giuliani published what he said was yet another email from Hunter Biden's laptop. It's a note to one of his children. It's sad, and it's fraught, and it's personal, and we're not going to quote it at length. But at the end, there's this, quote, "Don't worry. Unlike your grandfather, I won't make you give me half your salary." What does that mean exactly? Well, we don't know. There may be more detail in the laptop, but unfortunately we don't have access to that. But the question remains, how has Joe Biden lived in extravagance all these years on a government salary? No one has ever answered that question.
So Tucker Carlson asking the question, how does Joe Biden maintain his lifestyle on a senator's salary? I assume they have some kind of pension or retirement plan for senators. Can't be more than what they were making. He was making 174. But let's not mince words, people. Remember, we have actual audio of the phone call where the president of Ukraine confirms that it was Joe Biden making him fire the prosecutor Shokin. Let's listen to this again. If you listened to my streams earlier, I've played this before a few months back. It's worth listening to again, especially if you haven't seen it. This is Joe Biden on the phone with the president of Ukraine, who's letting him know, hey, I took care of that guy you wanted me to fire. Now, obviously, this is what you're going to hear is going to be edited for time. It's just the relevant parts going to be played. So, in case someone points that out at a later time, the full audio of the call is available. I have heard it more than once. Now we just have to wait for the potato to deal with all the tabs, so I can play the call for you. There we go. No, we don't want him bragging. We want the call itself.
Yesterday, I meet with the General Prosecutor Shokin.
Yes.
And despite of the fact that we didn't have any corruption charges, we don't have any information about he doing something wrong, I especially asked him, no, it was the day before yesterday, I especially asked him to resign. As his position as a state person, and despite of the fact that he has a support in the parliament. And as a finish of my meeting with him, he promised me to give me the statement on resignation. And 1 hour ago, he bring me the written statement of his resignation.
Great.
And this is
great. This phone call, this guy is giving Joe Biden a status report like he works for him. He's the president of Ukraine. He's letting Joe Biden basically determine who's going to be the prosecutor for his country. And this is my second step for keeping my promises. So this is him saying, I kept my promise to you, Joe.
My second step for keeping my promises.
I agree.
President Poroshenko?
Yes.
One moment.
All right, so there, you heard it yourself. Petro Poroshenko, the president of Ukraine at the time, confirming to Joe Biden that he kept his promise, saying it was the second time he kept a promise to him, and canned the prosecutor, Viktor Shokin, even though in his own words, they had no evidence of any corruption on his part, that he had no reason to can this prosecutor. So here's Joe Biden, if you recall, bragging about that incident.
I remember going over convincing our team, or others too, convincing us that we should be providing for loan guarantees. And I went over, I guess, the 12th, 13th time to Kyiv, and I was supposed to announce that there was another $1 billion loan guarantee. And I had gotten a commitment from Poroshenko and from Yatsenyuk that they would take action against the state prosecutor, and they did.
So here's Joe Biden acknowledging that he had a commitment from these people to get rid of the prosecutor. Why was this so important?
Didn't. So they said they were walking out to press conference. I said, no, I said, I'm not going to, or we're not going to give you the $1 billion. They said, you have no authority. You're not the president. The president said. I said, call him. I said, I'm telling you, you're not getting the $1 billion. I said, you're not getting the $1 billion. I'm going to be leaving here. And I think it was, what, 6 hours? I said, I'm leaving in 6 hours. If the prosecutor's not fired, you're not getting the money. Oh, son of a bitch. Got fired. And they put in place someone who was solid.
Right? So according to Biden, they got rid of Shokin and put someone who was solid. One problem with Joe Biden's theory. Let's go to the Wikipedia page for Victor Shokin. So, 2015, Shokin becomes the prosecutor general, inheriting the investigation that's into Ukrainian oligarch Mykola Zlochevsky. The Obama administration and other governments and non-governmental organizations soon became concerned that Shokin was not adequately pursuing corruption in Ukraine, was protecting the political elite, and was regarded as, quote, an obstacle to anti-corruption efforts. Among other issues, he was slow-walking the investigation into Zlochevsky and Burisma, and according to Zlochevsky's allies, using the threat of prosecution to try to solicit bribes from Mr. Zlochevsky and his team, to the extent that Obama officials were considering launching their own criminal investigation into the company for possible money laundering. So here we have Obama administration officials considering launching their own criminal investigation here in the United States into this corrupt Ukrainian company and Mykola Zlochevsky, its owner, for money laundering. And this is the company that Joe Biden's son decides to take money from and sit on the board of. While visiting Kiev in December 2015, then U.S. President Joe Biden warned Ukrainian President Petro Poroshenko. Now remember that December 2015 is a month after Hunter Biden got that email from his handler at Burisma telling him, you got to get this investigation squashed. So that's when Biden warned Ukrainian President Petro Poroshenko that if he did not fire Shokin, the Obama administration was prepared to withhold $1 billion in loan guarantees. Biden later said, I looked at them and said, I'm leaving in 6 hours. That's a video you just saw. If the prosecutor's not fired, you're not getting the money. So he used that $1 billion of American taxpayer guaranteed money, or at least the guarantee of the money, to muscle the president of Ukraine to fire the prosecutor Victor Shokin. That was apparently a problem for Burisma. So Shokin was dismissed by the parliament in late March 2016. In a sworn affidavit dated 4th September 2019 for a European court, this is on an unrelated case, Shokin stated that on several occasions, President Poroshenko asked me to have a look at the criminal case against Burisma and consider the possibility of winding down the investigative actions in respect of this company, but I refused to close this investigation. So Shokin claims he was investigating and that it was Poroshenko who was telling him to close the investigation down. Shokin's affidavit notes that it was prepared at the request of lawyers acting for Dmitry Firtash. So that was the case that Shokin was given an affidavit in. The only problem with this theory, and we're going to go to Mykola Zlochevsky's Wikipedia page. is that after the firing of Viktor Shokin, the guy that was supposedly the obstacle, according to Joe Biden, the case was dropped, and Zlochevsky was able to return from Ukraine, from being a fugitive. Let's read this. In early November 2014, Deutsche Bank reported that $24 million of funds from his companies, that's Michal Zlochevsky, were wired from Cyprus to the Latvia branch of Privatbank, a Ukrainian bank. In April 2014, the Serious Fraud Office froze approximately $23 million belonging to companies controlled by Zlochevsky. At the end of 2014, Zlochevsky fled Ukraine. He left the country. If he wasn't being investigated, why did he have to leave the country? Fled Ukraine amid allegations of unlawful self-enrichment and legalization of funds. Article 368-2 Criminal Code of Ukraine during his tenure in public office. In January 2015, Prosecutor General Vitaly Yarema announced that Zlochevsky had been put on the wanted list for alleged financial corruption. At the end of January 2015, the Central Criminal Court in London released the $23 million that were blocked on accounts of Zlochevsky due to inadequate evidence. In June 2018, the Serious Fraud Office stated that the case was closed. Zlochevsky returned to Ukraine in February 2018 after investigations into his Burisma holdings had been completed in December 2017 with no charges filed against him. Let's remember the timeline. March of 2017 is when they 2016 they fire the guy. So Shokin's out of the picture. He was the obstacle. Remember, he was the one slow walking it. Yet in 2017 they closed the case against Zlochevsky and Burisma, and he's able to return from his exile in Monaco back to Ukraine. So if Viktor Shokin was corrupt, why, after he's fired, does the case get dropped and Zlochevsky returns home? But before he's fired, Zlochevsky has to hide in Monaco or wherever it was he was hiding at that time. Someone needs to explain that to me, because either Joe Biden's corrupt, or B, Joe Biden used $1 billion of U.S. taxpayer money to go after an innocent man, because prior to Shokin's firing, Zlochevsky is a fugitive and can't return home. He's on the wanted list. After Shokin is fired, the case is closed, and Zlochevsky can come home. 2 and 2 is not making 4 there, guys. So here was the actual announcement in December of 2017, December 1st, 2017. Burisma, all cases against Group and Group's president Zlochevsky in Ukraine closed. That was after Viktor Shokin was fired. The Burisma Group, with oil and gas assets in Ukraine, has reported that all legal proceedings and pending criminal allegations against its president Mikhail Zlochevsky and operating companies of Burisma Group have been closed. The decision to fully close all pending legal proceedings and criminal allegations was the result of many months of cooperation between the Prosecutor General's office and the legal team representing the Burisma Group. And part of the people advising that legal team, Hunter Biden and his Blue Star team. The group said in a press release issued on Thursday. Further, the Burisma Group agreed that should an investigation determine that the Burisma Group owed outstanding taxes and or fees, that it would, without appeal, pay any and all outstanding taxes, fines, and fees. So in other words, a bribe. These people, somebody got their palm greased. As a result of the investigation, Burisma agreed to pay UAH 180 million of tax liabilities the group's companies paid, the sum the group said. In general, in the past 2 years, operating companies of the group paid over $5 billion I guess that's in Ukrainian currency, $5 billion of taxes to the budgets of all levels. Since all legal proceedings against Burisma Group are closed, it will allow us to increase the production volumes and the flow of foreign investments in Ukraine. Zlochevsky said. So that's Nikolai Zlochevsky. After Hunter Biden helped get him what he wanted, the case closed. He got the prosecutor off his back. He could come home and get the case closed and pay off who he needed to. Burisma said that the Pechersky District Court of Kiev obliged the prosecutor general's office to close the case against Zlochevsky and remove him from the wanted list. The prosecutor general's office executed the relevant court order. The Ukrainian court decision fully complies with the decision made by the... So in other words, after Shokin is fired, it cleared the way for Zlochevsky to get out of jail free. The case was closed. Done. Money well spent by Burisma, wouldn't you say? Whatever they were paying Hunter Biden, the $50,000 a month, it's a bargain because it lets him keep the billions or the tens of millions, whatever it was that Zlochevsky looted from the country of Ukraine. Here they even after they clear him up, now they have to hope that he pays his taxes. They can't even guarantee that. They said, they made an agreement to pay us taxes if we find out they owe any. So even that is not certain. That's what I call getting your money's worth. Unbelievable. I mean, can you believe this? Let's bear with the potato as it grinds through its memory here. Imagine if the mainstream... here's a Zero Hedge article on... Imagine if the mainstream media consistently applied the evidentiary standards that it's applying to Hunter Biden's emails. We wouldn't have had the Trump-Russia collusion scandal. Remember, the basis of that was some bullcrap dossier that was, third-party hearsay. Remember the claims about Trump with the P-tape and all that? Imagine if you actually had the video of the P-tape or had the pictures of Trump doing the bad stuff that they were talking about. Imagine if you had actual emails between Trump and people that are paying him to do their bidding. But it's Russian disinformation. But, if it was just Burisma, that'd be one thing. But like I mentioned earlier when I showed you that video of the Chinese guy, the Post also printed an article showing emails reveal how Hunter Biden tried to cash in big on behalf of family with Chinese firm. So here's Hunter Biden. Now, this China stuff, it makes what was going on in Ukraine small potatoes, guys. Here, Biden was mixed up with an outfit called the CEFC, right? This is China's largest private energy company. And the guy emails him with this thing that in the email he calls that it would be interesting for me and my family. The emails obtained by the Post show. The email was sent to Biden on May 13th, 2017. So this is China basically trying to set him up. With the subject line, expectations. And they're telling Hunter Biden what they would expect of him, including details of remuneration packages for 6 people involved in an unspecified business venture. Biden was identified as chair/vice chair, depending on agreement with CEFC, an apparent reference to the former Shanghai-based conglomerate CEFC China Energy Company. His pay was pegged at $850. And the email also noted that Hunter has some office expectations he will elaborate. In addition, the email outlined a provisional agreement under which 80% of the equity or shares in the new company would be split equally among 4 people whose initials correspond to the sender and 3 recipients, with H apparently referring to Biden. So this email is from James Gilliar, and the subject is expectations. It's sent to Tony Bobulinski, and CC'd on this email are Rob Walker and Hunter That's Hunter Biden's email at the time. So when they said that they have confirmation on these from people that were CC'd on the email, well, the only other person other than Hunter CC'd on this email is Rob Walker. The email was sent to Tony Bobulinski. So the person that's confirming this email has to be to me, or probably Rob Walker. As I already alluded, we have discussed and agreed the following remuneration packages. Chair/vice chair, depending on agreement with CEFC. Hunter, $850. CEO, Tony, I guess that'd be Tony Bobulinski, $850. James of the EEIG, International Consultancy Agreement Business Development. James gets $500,000. Rob, $500. Jim, unknown. Sainin, under EEIG agreement, $72,000. Hunter has some office expectations. He will elaborate. So Hunter Biden, basically, he wanted offices, I guess, for certain people. At the moment, there is a provisional agreement that the equity will be distributed as follows. 20% to H, 10 held by H for the big guy, according to the note. And the big question of this note is that H, Hunter, and who is the big guy, Joe Biden. 20% for RW, right? That's that Rob guy, I guess. 20% for JG. Who's JG? Was that James? 20% for TB. Well, TB is Tony Bobulinski. And 10% for Jim. That's Jim, his unknown compensation. And then 10% held by H, that's Hunter, for the big guy. So here we have the split of the 100% of the equity. 20% to Hunter, 20% to this guy Rob, 20% to Jim, 20% to this Tony Bobulinski. Well, it looks like this 10% goes to Jim. JG would be this James guy. And 10% held by H, Hunter, for the big guy, Joe. The deal also listed 10 Jim and 10 held by H for the big guy. Neither Jim nor the big guy was identified further. The email's author, James Gilliar, of the international consulting firm J2CR, also noted, I'm happy to raise any detail with Zhang if there is shortfalls. Zhang is an apparent reference to Zhang Jianjun, the former executive director of CEFC China. The email is contained in a trove of data. You know, you got it from the laptop. Okay. Another email sent by Biden as part of an August 2nd, 2017 chain involved a deal he struck with the since-vanished chairman of CEFC, Ye Jianming. Now, this guy has basically been disappeared in China. Apparently, Ye, he's been disappeared by President Xi, I guess. Can't be found. For half ownership of a holding company that was expected to provide Biden with more than $10 million a year. This, guys, if you're Hunter Biden and you couldn't see that this was a setup, I don't know what's wrong with you. This guy who was tied to the Chinese military and the intelligence, this Ye Jianming, remember he's been disappeared, was offering Biden $10 million a year for 3 years, $30 million total for quote-unquote introductions. I'm not making this up. $30 million over 3 years for Hunter to make introductions. Who's going to pay $30 million to anybody to make introductions? That's ridiculous. Ye, who had ties to the Chinese military and intelligence service, hasn't been seen since being taken into custody by Chinese authorities in early 2018, and CEFC went bankrupt earlier this year, according to reports. Biden wrote that Ye had sweetened the terms of an earlier 3-year consulting contract with CEFC that was to pay him $10 million annually for, quote, for introductions alone, quote. The chairman changed that deal after we met in Miami to a much more lasting and lucrative arrangement to create a holding company 50% owned by me and 50% owned by him, Biden wrote. So this is an email from Robert Biden to Gang Wendong, CC Mervyn Yan, and Robert Biden. Why is he CCing himself? My understanding is that the original agreement with the director was for consulting fees based on introductions alone, a rate of $10 million per year for a 3-year guaranteed total of $30 million. The chairman changed that deal after I guess this meme is actually met in Miami to a much more lasting and lucrative arrangement to create a holding company 50% owned by me and 50% owned by him. Consulting fees is one piece of our income stream, but the reason this proposal by the chairman was so much more interesting to me and my family, is that we would also be partners in the equity and profits of the JV's investments. Hence, I assume the reason for our discussion today, in which you made clear that the chairman would first get his investment capital returned into profits, would then be split 50-50. If you saying that is not the case, then please return us to the original deal, $10 million per year, a guaranteed 3 years, plus bonus payments for any successful deal we introduce. Let's discuss. Thank you. I mean, what is he talking about here? He's basically saying, give me $10 million a year, or better yet, give me half of the profits of every deal that I introduce you into. And that's it. That's all he's doing. He's not doing any work. He's not investing. He's not doing anything. This is, God. Much more lasting and lucrative arrangement. I mean, if you're the Chinese, why would you give him all this money? This is insane. For introductions, but no, he wants he's not even happy with the $30 million. He wants half of all profits after the guy gets his original investment back. He wants a piece of it going forward. Half. He's super greedy. Consulting fees is one piece of our income stream. I read that part too. The proposal by the chairman was so much more interesting to note me and my family. So a photo dated August 1st, 2017 shows a handwritten flowchart of the ownership of Hudson West, split 50-50 between two entities ultimately controlled by Hunter Biden and someone identified as chairman, the guy he's talking about in this email. And here's the thing. Hunter Biden goes down to name, whatever that means, and it says 50%. Then on the other side, we have chairman, goes down to an entity called Monochrome, and that Monochrome owns it 50%, and then that 50-50 is towards this Hudson West entity. And that's the entity that we're going to create, that Hunter Biden is proposing that he gets half the equity in this Hudson West. So according to a report on Biden's overseas business dealings released last month by Senators Ron Johnson and Chuck Grassley, a company called Hudson West 3 opened a line of credit in September of 2017. What is the date of this email? August 2nd, 2017. So a month later, a company in the name of this Hudson West opened up a $100,000 account in the name of his to be used by Hunter, his uncle James Biden, and James's wife Sarah Biden to purchase more than $100,000 worth of extravagant items, including airline tickets and multiple items at Apple Inc. stores, pharmacies, hotels, and restaurants. The company has since been dissolved, and Hunter Biden's law firm, Owasco PC, was one of two owners, according to the report, and I guess that's name. Biden's email was sent to Gong Wendong, whom the Wall Street Journal in October 2018 tied to the purchase by Ye-linked companies of two luxury Manhattan apartments that cost a total of $83 million. Dong, who owns a sprawling mansion in Great Neck, Long Island, has been identified in reports as CFO of Cam Fei Group, an investment firm based in Hong Kong. And here's Ye Jianming, the former chairman of the CEFC China energy conglomerate. The documents obtained by the Post also include an attorney engagement letter executed in September 2017. Remember when they gave him that $100,000 account that he could spend money from, in which one of Ye's top lieutenants, former Hong Kong government official Chi Ping Patrick Ho, agreed to pay Biden a $1 million retainer for counsel to matters related to U.S. law and advice pertaining to the hiring and legal analysis of any U.S. law firm or lawyer. So basically, that's a $1 million signing bonus to do nothing. It's a signing bonus. Here's $1 million sweetener just for being such a great guy. Counsel to matters related to U.S. law, advice pertaining to the hiring and legal analysis of any U.S. law firm. So they're paying him. They need Hunter Biden to tell them about law firms. These people, they're multi-billionaires. They have lawyers up the yin yang. Yeah, they need Hunter Biden, this crackhead, this crackhead's advice on retaining law firms. In December 2018, a Manhattan federal jury convicted Ho in 2 schemes to pay $3 million in bribes to high-ranking government officials in Africa for oil rights in Chad and lucrative business deals in Uganda. So here's Hunter Biden being offered $1 million by Cheap Ping Patrick Ho, who just 3 months later gets indicted for bribing Ugandan officials and for oil rights in Chad and Uganda. Attorney engagement letter. Identification of parties. This agreement is made between Robert Hunter Biden, Esquire, attorney, and Mr. Patrick Ho, the Deputy Chairman and Secretary General of China Energy Fund Committee. Client. Compensation. Client will pay attorney for the legal services provided under this agreement as follows. Retainer. In consideration for the services to be performed by attorney, client agrees to pay attorney the sum of $1 million as a retainer at the time of execution of this agreement. Ho served a 3-year prison sentence and was deported to Hong Kong in June. Neither Biden's lawyer, the Joe Biden campaign, Gilliard, Dong, or Ho's lawyers returned requests for comment. But Biden's lawyer has previously said there is no need for comment on any so-called information provided by Rudy Giuliani. Well, Patrick Ho went to jail. Patrick Ho went to jail for bribing African and Ugandan, Chad and Ugandan officials in Africa for oil rights. 3 months after he made an agreement with Hunter Biden to give him $1 million for quote-unquote counsel. Welcome to the fold, Nadine Claffey. He's been, I mean, this is a joke. I mean, there's so much here to go into. How is this a Russian disinformation campaign? The guys went to prison. This is who he's dealing with. And one problem for saying it's a Russian disinformation, source on alleged Hunter Biden email chain verifies message about Chinese investment firm. Sources multiple, have told Fox News that the big guy is a reference to the former vice president, Joe Biden. One of the people on an explosive email thread allegedly involving Hunter Biden has corroborated the veracity of the messages, which appear to outline a payout for former Vice President Joe Biden as part of a deal with a Chinese energy firm, China Joe. One email dated May 13th, 2017 and obtained by Fox News indicates a discussion of remuneration packages for 6 people in a business deal. That was the one where it showed 20%, 20%, 20%, 20%, and then 2 10% blocks, and the last 10% was going to be held by H for, quote, the big guy, remember? Sources told the Fox News that the big guy is a reference to former Vice President. The New York Post initially published the emails and other controversial messages that Fox News also obtained. So, one of the guys on that email chain, whoever it is, whether, I doubt it would be Patrick Ho, he was deported to Hong Kong. So far, my guess is maybe it was this Rob Walker who was CC'd. Maybe it was Tony Bobolinsky, who knows? Now, I'm starting to think that this James is maybe Joe Biden's brother. James, was it James Biden? Is that his name? So the Biden family is all up in there. Hunter Biden. Now, here's the other thing. Hunter Biden business associate flips from prison. So here's another guy that Hunter Biden was dealing with, who from prison has provided Zero Hedge with access to his Gmail account. Emails from a former business associate of Hunter Biden's inner circle who's serving time in prison for a 2016 investment scheme reveal that Hunter and his colleagues used their access to the Obama administration to peddle influence to potential Chinese clients and investors, including securing a private off-the-books meeting with the former vice president. The emails given to investigative journalist Peter Schweitzer by former Biden associate Bevan Cooney. It's Bevan Cooney that's in prison, mind you, and published by Breitbart also revealed that in 2011, the younger Biden and his business associates discussed strengthening relations with China Inc. as part of a new push on soft diplomacy for the Chinese. So here we have Hunter Biden, again, he's not part of the U.S. government, talking about a new push on soft diplomacy for the Chinese, while his father is the vice president of the United States. How is this not a conflict of interest? As Breitbart notes, these emails are completely unconnected to the Hunter Biden emails released by the New York Post. This is a completely different set of emails, but it shows that back in 2011, Hunter Biden and his pal Devin and his other pal and his prison pal, Bevan Cooney, were looking to get involved with these CEFC guys. And apparently it bore fruit. They actually started doing business with them. Cooney believes he was the, quote, fall guy for an investment scheme in which Hunter and business associate Devin Archer avoided responsibility. It's amazing how everybody around Hunter and his buddies go to prison, but he doesn't. He reached out to Schweitzer after the journalist published Secret Empires in 2018. Archer was initially spared jail and handed a second trial. However, a federal appeals court reinstated Archer's fraud conviction in the case last week. So it looks like Devin Archer now has had his conviction reinstated. So is he going to go to prison now too? Devin Archer is basically Hunter Biden's partner in all this Ukraine and China business. Cooney provided Schweitzer with written authorization, his email account name and password to his Gmail account to retrieve these emails. He authorized in writing the publication of these emails, notable because it is the first time a close associate has publicly confirmed Hunter's trading on his father's influence. So they can't claim it's a Russian disinformation campaign with hacked materials because the owner of the email account had gave Peter Schweitzer written permission and authorization to publish the emails. So these are 100% authentic. More revelations. In a November 5th, 2011 email, one of Archer's business contacts suggested helping to arrange White House meetings for a group of Chinese executives and government officials who would make potentially outstanding new clients. These are the guys that we just saw Hunter negotiating for the money. They were being introduced to Hunter and Archer as a group of Chinese executives and government officials who they wanted to be introduced to the Obama administration. They wanted to be taken to the White House. The group, the China Entrepreneur Club, CEC, included CCP, Chinese Communist Party loyalists, Chinese billionaires, and at least one respected diplomat from Beijing. According to the report, the China Entrepreneur Club, established in 2006, has been referred to as a second foreign ministry for China's communist regime. The gross income of the China Entrepreneur Club members is estimated to be equivalent to roughly 4% of China's GDP. So this small group of men and women, they account for 4% of China's gross domestic product. I know it is political season and people are hesitant, but a group like this does not come along every day, said intermediary Mohammed A. Khashoggi on behalf of the Chinese Entrepreneur Club to a Biden/Archer associate. A tour of the White House and a meeting with a member of the Chief of Staff's office and John Kerry, who was the Secretary of State at the time, would be great, reads the email. So this is amazing to me. You can see this. Check out that article at Zero Hedge. Hunter Biden business associate flips from prison, releases emails detailing China influence peddling operation. So this is basically the beginning of how he got involved with the Chinese, with these Chinese billionaires that were connected with the Communist Party. Schweitzer suggests that the meeting may have opened the door for Hunter and Devon Archer down the road, as just 2 years later, they formed the Chinese government-funded Bohai Harvest RST BHR investment fund, which saw Chinese money pour into it for investment in CEC, that's the Chinese Entrepreneur Club linked businesses. According to the report, one of Bohai Harvest RST's first major portfolio investments was a ride-sharing company like Uber called Didi Dash, now called Didi Chuxing Technology Company. That company is closely connected to Liu Chuanzi, the chairman of the China Entrepreneur Club and the founder of Legend Holdings. Legend Holdings is the parent company of Lenovo, one of the world's largest computer companies. Liu is a former Chinese Communist Party delegate and was a leader of the 2011 Chinese Entrepreneur Club delegation to the White House. His daughter was the president of Didi. The report adds, Liu has long been involved in Chinese Communist Party politics, including serving as representative to the 9th, the 10th, and the 11th sessions of the National People's Congress of the People's Republic of China, and as a representative to the 16th and 17th National Congress of the Chinese Communist Party. So this guy is on the inside. He's in the Holy of Holies. He's inside the National Congress of the Chinese Communist Party. These are the guys that determine the leadership of China. They're the ones that put President Xi in power. They're the ones that determine what the 5-year plan is going to be. This guy is as high as you can get in Chinese communist in the Chinese communist ranks, without being part of Xi's inner circle. Liu was the vice chairman of the 8th and 9th Executive Committee of All China Federation of Industry and Commerce, an organization known to be affiliated with the Chinese United Front. So these are the people that Hunter's running with. These are these guys at the top of the hierarchy of the Chinese Communist Party. Finally, somebody asked Joe Biden about this. This media blackout has been for days. Nobody asked him until this CBS reporter, Bo Erickson, finally catches up to Joe outside of his private plane. And as usual, Joe goes to the usual, doesn't answer the question, just attacks the reporter.
And Mr. Biden, what is your response to the New York Post story about your son, sir?
I know you'd ask it. I have no response. It's another smear campaign. Right up your alley. They're the questions you always ask.
And did you...
I have no response. This is a smear campaign. That's the standard. That's Biden's standard thing. You're a no down, no good lion pony soldier or whatever it was. That's his response to any embarrassing story about him. So there's the Bo Erickson sharing the video of him asking Biden. And here we have the email sent to John Paul by Hunter Biden's lawyer. Yes. Now, if this was some smear, if this was all made up, why was Hunter Biden's attorney, this George Macires, why did he call the repair shop owner, this John Paul? Why did he call an email asking for the return of the laptop? It's in reference to returning the laptops. Also, the attorney said Hunter dropped them off in 2017. Nope, it was April 2019. He didn't even know when he left them there. So the document, he redacted, I guess, the addresses and the phone numbers of these people. But here's the email. Why is Hunter Biden's lawyer, George Macires, emailing the shop guy, John Paul? Thank you for speaking with me last night. So here he's confirming that they spoke on the phone. As I indicated, I am a lawyer for Hunter Biden, And I appreciate your reviewing your records on this matter. Thank you, George. That's George R. Messiris, partner. And he redacts out his contact number there. So I guess he's a lawyer with Fager, Drinker, Biddle, and Reith, LLP. How do we know that this guy is Hunter Biden's lawyer? Well, he's been his lawyer for a while. Here's a statement from George Messiris, dated October 13th, 2019. A statement on behalf of Hunter Biden, dated October 13th, 2019. Hunter Biden's business activities have received significant press attention. Since 2016, I have served as Hunter's lawyer. So he's been Hunter's lawyer for 4 years. Oops. Why is Hunter's lawyer calling the repair shop, asking for the return of his laptops? Kind of indicates the laptops are his. You can't call a repair shop and ask for someone else's laptops to be returned. Unfortunately for Hunter and his attorney, the FBI has the laptops. They had them as of December. So they're a bit late getting the laptops back. So you can see a couple of outlets have now interviewed this John Paul Mac Isaac, the guy that the computer shop guy. Basically goes through the story of how he got the laptop. He details how the FBI, remember that CP lawyer Joshua Williams? He says that guy came to him his shop in person to examine the laptop and take it. Interesting. Interesting. So I just want to reiterate on that those emails that we went through, where the top executive from Burisma, just a month before Joe Biden made his trip and said, you're not getting the $1 billion unless you fire this guy. That's when Hunter Biden was told the ultimate purpose was to close down the Ukrainian investigations. That was the reason he was getting the money, according to that guy Pizarski that sent him the email. Let's reiterate, since I'm gonna wind this down now that we're almost on 3 hours of the stream. The scope of work should also include organization of a visit of a number of widely recognized and influential current and/or former U.S. policymakers to Ukraine in November, aiming to conduct meetings with and bring positive signal/message and support on Nikolai's issue to the Ukrainian top officials above, with the ultimate purpose to close down for any cases/pursuits against Nikolai, that's Nikolai Zlochevsky, in Ukraine. So that was let there be no doubt what Hunter Biden's marching orders were the month before his dad flew to Ukraine and issued that directive. And in case the media thinks this is made up, and this is some kind of smear job, then are they saying that the Biden Inc. article that was written by Politico back in 2019 was that bullcrap? This was an article. This article appeared in Politico back in August of 2019, guys. Read it for yourself. It's called Biden Inc. Easy to find. You just search Biden Inc. and Politico, and you can read this article for yourself. And it goes way back, showing Biden corruption way back. It even gives you this timeline back into the 70s. All the corrupt dealings of the Biden family. Remember, before Hunter, it was James Biden, the brother of Joe Biden, that was the primary mover behind this. Lots of stuff with that Paradigm hedge fund. Maybe we'll go into it in the future stream, but I'm gonna leave it there. I've dumped a lot of info on you guys. Let's see, someone in the chat's asking, can't place my accent. New York City, Brooklyn to be specific, all my life. But that's an interesting story to read. The Biden Inc. They can't claim this one is fake. It's Politico. Last time I checked, Politico is not a right-wing source. And it was over a year ago. So, I don't know what to tell you. Seems to me Joe Biden and Hunter Biden got a lot of explaining to do. And they can't just pawn it off as some kind of Russian disinformation campaign. We got names, we got dates, we got money changing hands. This isn't something that they could just hand wave away. All right, guys. So I think we're gonna leave it there. It's like I mean, I could go on. I could go. There's hours of material. I had to edit out just to fit it in this. I didn't want to take this past 2 hours, but I chop it down and I still can't keep it inside of 2 hours. There's too much here. It's crazy. If I was a journalist, there's so much here you could write a story on. It's crazy. But I mean, I think we're gonna be hearing a lot more about this story. So I'll have to do some follow-ups on it. You know, I'm not saying there's gonna be a stream tonight, but maybe I will if they sprinkle out some new information. Who knows? Because Rudy's he's cagey, and if he appears on any more weekend shows, maybe he'll sprinkle out some new bombshell. But keep an eye on that. But all I'm gonna say is we'll call it a stream right here. So that's all. That's all for this NeoUnrealist. Look, if you want to help my channel out, do me a favor. Hit like for the video. Leave a comment below. That seems to help the algorithm. Mash down on the subscribe button if you're not already subscribed to the channel. So a lot of you guys, a lot of people subscribed today. Click on the notification bell next to it, though, if you subscribe, because otherwise you won't get any notifications. You got to put it on that all setting. Otherwise, YouTube doesn't send you anything, hardly. Or if you want to contribute directly to the channel, you want to toss your hard-earned dollars into the tip jar, you can follow the links below in the description to either Patreon, Subscribe Star, or PayPal. Or if you watch this on BitChute, you can just click on the green tip pledge button on the video player. Typically, my streams upload to BitChute automatically in a couple hours. But most importantly, guys, thanks for watching.
One